What's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're going to briefly talk about the Bitcoin price chart. However, we've got a bunch of green over here in the market, and the primary focus is actually going to be over here on the altcoin market. As I am certain that you are aware, of course, we have seen a downtrend here in the market for the last couple of weeks. And yesterday morning seemed to have price action that seemed to be kind of climatic in there. We actually reached a price level that we've talked about since back in April over here on others, or the altcoin market, excluding the top 10. I ran through this in yesterday's video. So if you haven't caught yesterday's video, take a peek at it, which is liquidation to support Bitcoin price downtrend as altcoin market slams the lows. Confluence on several, where we ran through a series of tweets from back in April after the major liquidation took place, where we had like back-to-back days. That was the biggest liquidation event in crypto history, discussing about how if we went down one more low just below that level, that would be my YOLO zone, using examples of how these things can play out and how bottoms can come into play in here. For example, this is Bitcoin from back in 2022. This, of course, is your FTX collapse that takes place right here. And now watching for prices to settle. We took a look at a couple of assets yesterday, like Arbitrum, Cardano, Cosmos, or Atom. They were all at support levels in there. Hey, what do you know? They've held for the last 24 hours. Things have looked good so far. So it actually does kind of have me a little bit excited here right now, because now there's usually a couple more steps that take place in here for this bottom to start to form. And so I want to start talking about that a little bit. But for example, this is pretty much the same structure that we see all throughout the market, all through here. We have our major liquidation that takes place back here on April 13th. Prices hold here for 2 months. Then finally, we go and we take out this low. This is actually an incredibly common bottoming structure. And of course, that's what we've shown over here on Bitcoin. Holds this thing for several months and then takes out the low. But to kind of see this thing in action and over here and how these things actually do play out quite common, you can just look back over here, right? This is us coming off of our lows from back in March of 2020, the excessiveness, and then we go into a correction like this. And I've actually grabbed it over here to kind of give you an example of that and what that looks like. And as you can see in here, it's really the exact same thing. The big fall holds on the support, then finally squeaks out the low. And that marks it, and off we go, which is what you can see happening over in here. It's really the same thing. This is how bottoms can actually form. Matter of fact, even one of the charts that we look at all the time is the US dollar currency index. And while you look at it here, your brain may not see it. We can actually go back in time and review exactly what it was like when that all occurred in there. As you can see, big fall, holds the support, takes out the lows, and then what happens? It eventually reverses its way back up, and that's how you mark the bottom in there. Up, 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 and away it goes. Even as we can see over here with Litecoin, after it started to try to finally get its first push here off of the lows, this is still the exact same style in here as well. Big fall takes place, holds itself in here. Boom, there's your new low. That's how the low gets formed, and then off and away it goes, right? So it's kind of like this last flush that happens to push the excessiveness out, which is like what you see on XRP in here. Holds it, boom, and that's it. And as for those who were here during the 22.5 days, just like that as well, right? Often referred to as the crashing structure, or that this is wave 7 for those who follow the crashing structure, that this is how the ending ends up coming in here, which is the basis of this idea in discussing it in this manner. After we see such massive liquidations back in April, if we take out a new low, it's like being at the actual bottom. And so considering that we see this actually sprinkled all throughout the market, that it really just kind of looks the same everywhere, the fact that things did hold up well yesterday, I'm actually feeling really, really optimistic that we're doing okay in here. But we should talk about like what these processes can be like right in here, because this is where a lot of people's emotions can get completely obliterated in here, because this is the emotional news opportunity, I guess you could say. You know, people will always scream manipulation, manipulation in any market whenever they get wrong-footed on something. And I tend to think it's a lot less about like manipulation of the actual prices. But what I do personally believe in the cryptocurrency market is that narratives show up when they're supposed to show up, and that there probably is coordinated efforts to have news events occur when they do. And I could put my tinfoil hat on and say that it's like extreme. And I'm not just talking a couple of VCs, but we've seen government things happen at the correct times too, especially the SEC. But what's been really fascinating about this whole move down that we've had is there has been no news. That has been so fascinating to me as we've gotten down here to say, where's the news to really scare people? Where's the thing to shake them out of their bags? And we just haven't had it. And even yesterday, we actually got some good news. And that Consensus came out and said that Ethereum survives the SEC. Today, we're happy to announce a major win for Ethereum developers, technology providers, and industry participants. The enforcement division of the SEC has notified us that it is closing its investigation into Ethereum 2.0. This means that the SEC will not bring charges alleging that sales of Ethereum are securities transactions. So boom, good news at the bottom. We all get to buy the low with just like awesome news out there. It's not usually how things go. And so we'll talk about how these bottoms usually end up happening in here, and to still remain on caution that there still could be a surprise of news. But I'm feeling very confident in here. This is going to be, like I stated, my YOLO. But I'm very cautious of a couple of steps that typically happen before that. And so we'll dive into this. And one of the most recent times we can reflect back on that would be for people who follow XRP. For those who can recall this moment right here, we actually knew for it to be very common to come back to backtest this support, and talked about it in detail, that typically there's one more flush that ends up happening that's typically associated with bad news. Sure enough, the bad news came. What was it? It was like Chris Larson's personal wallet got hacked for like $100 million worth of XRP or something like that. This, of course, created a bunch of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. What? Head of Ripple, he can't even keep his own XRP. What does that mean for the company? What does that mean for XRP? Is there going to be a lot of sell pressures? Are people going to trust Ripple anymore? What does it mean? Right? There was a psychological effect that happened in here for that to occur. And where did it occur? Right there, right? And so what we talk about quite often when bottoms actually end up being formed, and I've talked about this a lot, is that typically the bottom is the one that everybody is actually convinced is the bottom. And it's not actually it. It's really close, but it's usually not it. There's usually like one more, kind of like this in here for Bitcoin, right? Or kind of like this one, right? Excessive, and then, whoa, this is a trend change, one more. Or this one down here, oh, that feels like it could be it, no, one more. Or this one, right, oh, that feels like it could be it, nope, one more. Or like this one that we just looked at. Oh, that feels like that could actually end up being it. Nope, one more. And sometimes they don't go and set a new low, but they'll come back and backtest and give one more kind of scare. And so the thing that I'm watching for right now is something along those lines occurring here. That there's something that ends up giving one more flush, and especially if it comes with something that rattles retail investors, that makes you feel like trash. You know, I started this by saying, emotional log, right? And that's because every time we reach reversal points in anything, it's always going to be incredibly emotional. What was going on at the top when we're back at the 702 Fibonacci retracement level? Everybody's euphoric. Everybody's mocking bears, ignoring the fact that we're in a retracement level because the euphoria is so strong. The news is so strong. We're fresh off of Bitcoin ETFs. It's all super exciting. The narrative is great. What was happening down in here at the bottom in 2022? FTX collapsing. How are we ever going to come back from this? It's over, right? It's over, isn't it? And then we spend months, right, with people screaming that we're going to 12K. Not months, like a year. Maybe there won't be any news associated with it. Maybe it'll be fine. But typically there is. And so if something just kind of magically shows up, because what did we just get? What do we typically see? We typically see that the first bottom is not the real bottom. And people just got convinced it probably is due to the news that just came out about Ethereum that was released by Consensus last night, right? But then what happens if we flip over and then there is like that Chris Larson hack for $100 million, right? And I talk in this manner, and I know it sounds silly. It's like, what news could possibly show up? And typically we can't expect it or see it coming, but it typically does happen. But that's what I'm looking for right in here. Looking for this thing to do one more little kind of scare right there. Potentially some negative news that's pretty scary, and then things start to recover out of there. And if that ends up being the case, it's likely all systems are go. Again, for Bitcoin, it's just a big giant range in here. There's no trending that is happening in here. There's no clear read on this thing. Obviously, everybody has arrow go up. As of right now, there's no evidence for it. It could still just be a long Wyckoff accumulation or distribution that's happening in here and still just progressing along. And we're only like halfway through the thing. Again, in 2021, when this thing did escape, it came with some surprising news that ended up happening back here. Still no evidence of that. Otherwise, right, it could just be a long distribution that's going on in here, but that's okay for the altcoin market as long as it still just has plenty of time in here. I mean, it could spend months up in here. I know that's not everybody's favorite thing to hear. 4-year cycles, block reward halving. We repeat on time schedules for the sake of repeating on time schedules. But hey, if you are a time schedule person, and with how long we've actually been in this thing, it was around an equivalent of about July 9th of when we actually ended up seeing this market expand compared to the 2018 through 2020 bear. So for the time people. Otherwise, the major thing I'm watching for right now is what a bottoming structure can be like, and being incredibly alert and hyper aware that these are areas where news can really shake you up. Otherwise, things look pretty good. It's a process. We'll keep our eyes on it. So, all right, we'll go ahead and start wrapping it up, guys. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you're looking for something to do, you could check out my most recent newsletter, which was published just a couple of days ago. The crypto portfolio traits that are winning. We've gone through, analyzed in the run through October through March. Who had the best boost through there? Again, all of those traits seem to be incredibly relevant when we look at them from a basket perspective of things like total value locked, developer activity, user activity, NFTs, all that stuff. We go through them all. We take a look at who's leading in developer activity, user activity levels right now. It's got a 32-minute audio recording in there. If you sign up for the newsletter, you get access to all past newsletters as well, and you can read all the research that has been done on these topics. There's like a 4-part series associated with it, and there's even more put out there for TVL as well. If videos are more of your thing, you could check out bcbacker.com with over 40 videos and over 11 hours of content teaching you how to set up your own charts and your own indicators within TradingView and CoinTrader Pro. There's links down here in the description of this video to bcbacker.com and to the newsletter right there at blockchainbacker.substack.com. Otherwise, have a fantastic day, and thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice, and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.